Hey guys, welcome back. Soap here, Buddy Perry.
Hello.
This is another week of a lot of interesting things. Today we are going to focus on how do we tell our kids what the hell is going on with the world right now. I can't even begin to really think about it because it's just one of those things. I have no words. You kind of have to talk about it piece by piece as a whole. But I know the protesting and the Black Lives Matter, and I don't know, I think the whole all lives matter thing kind of coming into the fold as well. It confuses a lot of people and confuses a lot of things, but ultimately, how do we explain that to our kids? I don't know if you've had that talk with your kids yet, or anything like that, or even started to think about it.
No, I've thought about it for sure. How can you not? But but I'm definitely not opposed to like hiding it from my kids. They just hadn't noticed. Maybe one thing is we don't watch a lot of news at home.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like on the TV and they're like, hey, what is that? So that might be part of it as well. And when me and Sophia talk about it, we talk about it privately, just with each other. So not around with the kids, but we're both in agreement. We're not opposed to like telling them how it is if it comes up. But I don't know. I think eventually it will come up. And I kind of welcome that. How I will approach it is, I don't know. Honestly, I'm much better speaking like when I improvise than actually like jotting down my notes or anything about how to tell my kids this. But I think I just have to tell them the truth. Just like the world is not this happy-go-lucky place that you live in and believe and embody right now. And it's unfortunate, but the reality is that we're at a huge inequality in America right now. And obviously, I'm not going to use the word inequality, but because they're going to be like, "What? What is that?"
Yeah.
But in simpler terms, I would say that it's for a long time, America has been built on a system that's been just really unfair to minorities in general, and at least this is my opinion of it, right? And what I would explain to them is that, I want you to grow up thinking that everyone is equal, whether your friend is Black, Indian, Hispanic, Asian, white, whatever. Like, I want you to treat them the same way, and I expect them to treat you the same way as them. I don't want you to be unfair for one reason or another because of the way they look, the way they act. Well, maybe it depends on how they act, but But it's just keep that open mind and not let other external factors convince you otherwise. So I guess when I get to that point and speak to them about it, I want to focus on basically keeping an impartial mind with them, so that they can go ahead and just make that decision decisively on their own, and not carry my biases around, or anything like that. I really want them to just have an open mind about that. I honestly don't think they would comprehend it, but I think it's just good to at least tell them that it's the world is not, America right now is not, it's not working optimally for everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all your points. And I actually, I think it was earlier this week, I actually spoke to my eldest because she kept on asking, "Oh, Daddy, can we go out and play and everything like that?" And it was kind of heartbreaking, right? Because she wanted to go outside, she wanted to go, do jump rope, ride a bike, or whatever it is. And I think at that moment for me, I just had to be real with her. I really just had to kind of sit her down and kind of let her know exactly what's happening, right? Obviously she knows about the coronavirus, and she knows that, she needs to distance herself, and she understands why we can't visit our friends and everything like that. But now we kind of compound that issue with not really being able to go outside the house because you don't really know what's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that where we live is right where the protesters are, but given the fact that on a nightly basis we're hearing loud bangs and what can be perceived as gunshots and everything like that, I'm thinking, okay, well, shoot, who knows what's going to happen, and anything can happen, to be honest with you. So what I did was I actually pretty much sat her down and just kind of show her. And the thing is, I don't know if it was really appropriate or age appropriate, but I had to show her exactly what was happening in terms of the protests and people standing up for what they believe in, voicing their opinions and everything like that, but also contrast it with showing what the looters and rioters were actually doing, right? And it's hard for a 6-year-old to understand and comprehend why people do the things that they do, and I think the crazy thing that really got to me was that was my assumption. But as soon as I started talking to her about it, she started getting a little sad and getting teary-eyed and everything. I'm kind of wondering, either she understands or like she's just thinking, man, now I can't really go out and do things, right? So it's either one or the other. And then I showed a clip of what I found was kind of funny, was a clip of Target. It's like, oh, well, why are they stealing stuff from Target? A lot of people work hard to help people out in there. And I was like, wow, that's her takeaway. But at the same time, she understood, she kind of understood it. And then also, I'm talking about like, just how people are treated differently based on the color of their skin and the background and everything like that. I told her, we shouldn't look at, and this kind of jives with what you said as well, Barry, in terms of, you can't judge a book by its cover, you can't judge a person by the color of their skin. And ultimately what I told her, and I just sat her down, is like, you have to understand that aside from this color, the color of our skin right now, you take that away, we're all the same. Same heart, same organs, same color, same everything on the inside. And ultimately, I just say, you know what? When you do things out of the genuine goodness of your heart. Don't look at a person and think, well, I don't want to talk to them because they're black, white, brown, whatever the case may be. And just to make sure that she understands that the main thing that really matters is what's right here in your heart, right? And to help them understand that.
Did you, when she started tearing up, when you initially spoke to her about this, did you ask her why she was crying, or?
I didn't really get a chance to ask her the whys, just because I got a little bit caught up in just the explanation and just the overall message that I was trying to give her. I didn't really ask her why, but I think maybe I should have, just to get a better understanding of it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's time too. It's just like I'm genuinely curious. Like
why does all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, how does a 6-year-old, like you said, take this in and then also convey it? Like I'm genuinely curious. So
yeah, I mean, maybe I'll follow up and ask her, because I'm sure she does remember. She knows about these things, but the thing is, I think it's kind of crazy and kind of scary at the same time that we have to talk to our kids and be real about things like this. But I also feel that it's also needed, because if we continue to shelter them to a point where they go out without really knowing or understanding like the issue that people deal with, I think that kind of puts them at a disadvantage as well.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I'm more of the better to be prepared than not, and knowledge is really power, like that's why if it comes up, in the way I think about it, if it comes up, I will address it and not hide it from them. Like, a good example, like I used to work downtown SF, but it's riddled with homelessness, mentally ill people, transients, like all like drag queens or whatever, or like not drag queens, but like transvestites, prostitutes and stuff like that. We take Bart down, and Zoe, at that time she's probably like 4 or 5. She sees all of it and she's like, what's wrong with that guy sitting on the floor? And I tell her, I'm like, he doesn't have a house. He's considered homeless. I don't know how he got there. And and then he was also kind of like speaking to himself. So to me, that leads me to believe that he's probably partially at least schizophrenic. And so I had to explain to her, like, he doesn't have a house. I'm not sure how he got there. He probably, some decisions led him there. And also, just his brain is not working, like to the best of his ability. So, she was like, "Who's he talking to?" And like, "Why are those people like, that lady is really tall, right? Like 6'6". Yeah." And I was like, "Well, that's actually that's a man, just like the lady, but who's trying to solicit people." And I was just explaining to her that, and she was, blank faced, like kind of super confused, like, "What?" Like, just like that. And then I had to tell her at the end, I was like, where we live, we're lucky to be in an area that doesn't have a lot of like this type of population, because I definitely don't want to raise kids around it, just because of what it brings in, drugs, alcoholism, violence, and stuff like that. And so I just told her, like, the world is not fair for everyone, and some of it's their fault, some of it's not their fault. But you have to understand that, like we would try our best to give you the best, but I want you to know too that the world is not fair. So any type of another example is, like, if they start to say stuff like this, like really spoiled, like, "Oh, I want this. How come we can't get a bigger house? How come we can't have a bigger car?" I put them in their place. I'm like, "Look, we're lucky that we even have a house. There's people that don't have homes. We're lucky that we can choose what we want to eat. To go, literally go anywhere and dine out, or this pre-shelter place. So don't be spin that stuff. Thinking that you can just go around and do whatever you want and you're like invincible, because we're just very lucky to be like this." So I try to humble them as much as I can, and educating them is the big key about that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually tend to agree as well. Like, obviously, we both come from different backgrounds, right? I mean, obviously, I don't know about you, but obviously, I wasn't born here. Nothing really came easy for my family, obviously. And, just to kind of show the girls that, obviously life isn't easy, but life is ultimately not fair for everyone. The things oftentimes, obviously if you're not fighting for it, they don't really go your way all the time, right? And I think with everything that's really going on right now, there's definitely a lot of opportunities. There's obviously a lot of people who are suffering. And I think to kind of have the kids understand that there is that difference, and that, to feel fortunate for where we're at is such a key thing to actually make sure that they understand. Obviously, they're always going to, they're little kids, right? They're always going to have moments where they're going to feel maybe entitled to something that they feel that they should have. And again, to your point, putting them in their place and making sure to humble them, I think is definitely something that like my parents did that, right? They always gave me a guilt trip saying, well, like, at least you have food, at least you have clothes, at least you have a house, and everything like that. And the thing is that I think ultimately what this really shows them is what is truly important in life, right? Things, or people, or lives. What is it? Or people and lives, right? And so I think hopefully with whatever we're trying to instill in them, it would actually be something that they take throughout their whole life, right? And I think that, to touch on the whole thing about being fortunate, or what my parents actually did that really humbled me was, I think it was around when I was a teenager, like 13, 14, I believe. They took me back to the country, back to Cambodia, and a lot of the things there at the time, it wasn't as advanced, just because of the war and everything like that. But it's what it showed me was kids who were purely happy just to be able to have food. Right here, we have food. We don't like it. We want something else. There, that's all they got, and they're extremely happy just to have food in their stomach. And that's one aspect of it. But I don't want to lose sight of the ultimate reason, or the ultimate topic that we're talking about, which is essentially just really making sure that the kids understand that every situation is going to be different, and every situation is always going to have a pro and con, cause and effect, and consequences. And I think ultimately it's up to us to determine how much we want to show them and what we want to show them, right? To understand.
I think, I mean, they're gonna read about this in the history books. Everything that's happening right now, 2020, eventually, right? So I'm welcoming that the time beforehand, or even during when that happens, for them to ask questions like, "Hey, so you remember you told me about coronavirus? I understand that's like this flu-like sickness, and it spreads really easily. But then there's this other thing that happened during that time. You didn't really talk to me about it.
Yeah.
With the Black Lives Matter and protesting and stuff like that. Like I don't know. There's a part of me that, as a parent, I can't really just go up to her and be like, "Hey, look, the world, like people are protesting right now, and then there's people that are rioting because of they killed an unarmed black man on camera, and it's really everyone's fed up because it's just so many situations like that." My kids would be like, "Whoa, where's this coming from?" They're not going to know. It's out of context, right?
Right.
So
I think you kind of have to ease it in.
Yeah. Like if she saw something and warranted a question, then that would be a good segue into it. So I applaud you for taking the opportunity when that happened with Arya to explain to her. Like I don't want to manifest it. I want it to come naturally, but in a way I do want to discuss it with them while it's in its peak right now of like the thick of it, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I again, like I said, I was at odds, but I kind of felt that if they didn't ask about it, it would die down and it would kind of lose its purpose. Kind of like how, what's happening with Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and everything. Where I think people are losing the true context of what Black Lives Matter is, that movement is. And obviously, it's been an ongoing thing. It's not like it's just like this, like right now, but police brutality towards people of color have always been an issue. It's just that now, people have they finally feel empowered enough to actually take a stand and actually call it out, right? Like,
people are fed up, man.
Right? No, they're totally fed up. I mean, look, in all honesty, like hearing about all those things that have happened, I'm like, obviously, I would say like almost like 90 to 95% of it wasn't warranted, obviously. But I think it's the whole civil rights movement and all the oppression that people of color have had to endure, and even people from not necessarily African American, but even Asian people, they've had to deal with a whole lot of that oppression, right? And I'm not trying to take it away from it, but what I'm trying to say is that the message needs to be clear, and it needs to be it's oftentimes too misunderstood, and people take it really in multiple different directions, therefore kind of, I don't know, muddling up the true meaning of what that movement actually stands for.
And I honestly think that the government wants that muddling up, because nothing gets done when things get muddled up, right? It gets and so I mean, my stance is like, if I were black, or let's just say obviously I'm Asian. Let's just say I kept on seeing, Asian people not only just getting arrested but getting killed, and then the justice system just kind of, slaps on the wrist for the cop, right? They just get fired, or like paid leave or something like that. It would give off this huge vibe to me that this justice system doesn't have our backs as an Asian culture. Like they keep on, let's say, who knows? Like, okay, let's just say, devil's advocate, the last one I saw, hypothetically speaking, Asian guy's resisting arrest. He gets pinned down by like 5 cops, and then similar thing happens, and then they kneel on him, and then he dies. Yeah, he's resisting arrest. That minute thing, but then you kill him, and then nothing happens to the cops. I would be furious, right? I'm actually furious right now
Yeah.
talking about it. So like I can only imagine decades of that having with like the black community, that eventually you're just like, fuck it, like like
Say
fuck
something.
everything.
Do something about it, right?
Yeah, like fuck everything. Like I'm not, and that doesn't mean fuck everything, let's go loot and riot. I separate them. There's protesters for the cause,
Yes.
yeah, and then looters and rioters that are just using the cause as an excuse to go out there and vandalize and blame that, like, the cause for it. Right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So 100%
I mean,
protesting for sure. Like
the contrasting thing that I saw was I forget where it was, but then it was 4 pictures in quadrants. Two Caucasians versus 2 African Americans. The 2 Caucasians, they shot up the school. They were provided with a bulletproof vest, and they were handcuffed and walked out in a civil manner. Whereas 2 African Americans, one was Mr. Floyd.
It was George Floyd for the.
I forget the other individual, but it was a forgery on a blank check, and the other one was like I forget what the other incident was, but essentially, yeah, they were pinned to the ground, knee on the neck, and it's like that to me was very contrasting. The differences in the way that certain individuals are treated, right, depending on. And I really hate to say this, but based on the color of their skin. Right?
For sure.
You know, and it's extremely unfortunate. I get kind of choked up kind of talking about it, because in all honesty, no one really deserves that kind of treatment. Everyone needs, they need to have a way to. I don't know. I'm just getting kind of flustered just really thinking about it.
Well, I mean, it's the whole system, man. Like, and it's the entire system. That's what this protest is about. It's like we're fed up with a system that basically, like, makes us like us, as in, like, let's just say I'm speaking on behalf of the black community, and minorities in general. It's like it basically is a system created for us to be punished harsher for a crime that's very minute compared to a white individual, Caucasian individual, who commits the same crime and then gets off with like a lesser punishment. It's like, like I watched a documentary recently on Netflix. I think it's called The 13th, which is speaking about the 13th Amendment, but it gives a whole like history about where this came from. Specifically with African Americans in America, right? And for the longest time, it was like there's this movie a long time ago. I forgot what it was called. It was like one of those like old school black and white movies where there are no words, right? But it basically depicted Caucasians as like animals and rapists and things like that, and that kind of sparked up like white supremacy. So KKK, they got the burning cross and everything. Well, that was never in their in their main toolbox until that movie came out, and then the director thought it would be cool to have KKK put a cross, with burning cross on it, and so they adopted that. So it kind of ignited white supremacy again. After that, there was a whole lineage, a couple years of just them like lynching black folks. And then after that, it was like Jim Crow law came in, and then like they had segregation. But then what I think about it is that black folks were like, fuck, we're fucking sick of getting lynched for no reason. We'll take segregation. At least we can still use the stuff, even though we're like on the back of the bus or we're separated. Like they're basically taking a plea each like decade or so. Because basically, the lesser evil, and then this is just another iteration of it, which is like, well, dude, we're like, here's another really good one. So cocaine, typically known as like a really like high class drug, right? A lot of Caucasians use it, and then I forgot which year it was, but then they somehow crack cocaine got put into the black communities because it's a cheaper alternative. But if you took 2 individuals, one black, one white person uses regular cocaine, black person uses crack cocaine, that black individual who uses crack cocaine will get sentenced to like the peak level of sentencing, whereas the white individual who uses like probably 100 times more of cocaine versus crack cocaine, that like amount, will get maybe like less than 25% of that sentence.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a system. It basically describes that America created a system to punish, to keep those the poor and more poor and like distance themselves from the wealthy and inequality, just keeping inequality like separate. So anyways,
for sure. No, I mean, I think that's actually a really good segue to be honest. And I know that we can go on and on about this, but I guess one last thing I really wanted to mention as well is this along the same lines. And I know it's a really big issue or topic, and it like again, I think it's a parallel. And I think it's been an issue for quite some time, and the issue is gender pay gap. It's very similar, right? Yeah. And so I think it's systemic in the sense that there's a certain mindset of, okay, well, men can do the jobs like say 2, 3, 4, 5 times better than women can, but now I think the tides are turning to where women are becoming top level execs and everything and are more than capable of doing what a man can do by 10, 20, 30 fold, whatever the case may be. And I think it takes a lot of activism and a lot of outreach to people in order for people to hopefully understand. And I know that oppression has been going on for quite some time now, and it's not going to be something that's going to be solved overnight, right? I mean, everywhere you go, there's going to be judgment, regardless of where you're at, right? Like, for instance, if we go to a predominantly white neighborhood, people would wonder why we are there, right? Yeah. And we being Asians, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. But you would never, I mean, actually, strong word, never is really strong, but you would probably not question as much if a Caucasian person would go to any neighborhood, really. It's a case-by-case thing, but I don't want to dive too deep into that, to be honest with you, just because I know that it can open up a lot of it's a can of worms. But ultimately, what I really wanted to say, just kind of closing, is that I think all lives matter. Fine. I don't think that should be used as a way to take away from the Black Lives Matter, but ultimately, we just really need to treat each other with a lot more kindness and a lot more love. I think people already have their mind made up. I'm very sure of it, but it's one thing to think it, it's another thing to act on it. And a lot of people who are acting on it and acting on it in such a way that is causing more damage than any good, I think those are the ones that are truly, really not doing any good for society right now, obviously, with all the rioting and protesting and like that. But I mean, that's just reality. That's just what we have to deal with now. As much of a broken record as it is, I can't emphasize that any more than I already am.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, it's been going on and on and on, and maybe like we got used to it. And I guess my closing remarks would be, I'm glad that it's a huge disruption right now. That's the beginning part of change. And then now we just need to, since we got everyone's attention about this, I think it's good to lay down the guidelines of like what we want to change, and just have the whole world just kind of be like, okay, like we got it, So I mean, that's praying for hope. So and I would love to share these stories with our kids, to let them know that, like, hey, we're in an era where change is starting, and it'll happen. So
I tend to agree. I really hope that change is going to happen for the good of the future, and for our kids and our kids' kids, and so on and so forth. But
otherwise I'd be super scared for them, right?
No, that's for sure right now. I mean, I kind of wonder whether or not, it's, having a kid right now. I mean, obviously we already have our kids, but for them to kind of be exposed to these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, these sorts of movements have happened throughout American history. And I think the only thing that you can really hope for is that we all come out of it better. And that's, that's always going to be the hope. So. Until next time, guys, thank you for joining. Feel free to let us know what you think. Stay safe. Stay inside your house if you can. But ultimately, enjoy the weekend. And until next time.
See you guys.
Peace.